Thank you for coming, and we are here today to discuss the new challenges that GitOps brings us. And it's really easy to fall into criticism when you're looking for bad things. This is what I'm trying to avoid here. I want to stay on the rational reflection mindset and not only being negative about anything that well, when you look for the problems, you will find them, you know. So don't be looking for too many problems in your life. It's not the first time I'm speaking about this matter, because back in the year 2016, I was speaking at Jenkins World Conference, and I was using this analogy of the one-way road, and it should be driverless, you know. So that's the concept when CI and CD ideas, this is where we were going. And first thing you can notice from that talk is that I didn't change laptop from the year 2016, so I'm really conservative, and I'm really not running and rushing into anything new. I'm really critical in any new concepts, but I was liking the CI/CD concept back then, and I like it until today, because I know that the automation, the strive for automation is the only thing that speeds up our daily operations. So the analogy of the one-way driverless road continues. It's frequently easy to use this analogy as our processes and pipelines, because they are by their nature one-way roads. And over years, I was hearing this analogy from different people also multiple times, which means it makes some sense. So in the first part of the 20th century, there was big boom in the cars. And at some moment, there was a lot of congestion on the roads. So in the United States, they quickly figured out that turning the roads from two-way into one-way is a way to increase the throughput of the roads. So there was certain increase, and many cities have adopted one-way roads as a way to fight the congestions. But soon they also realized that it comes with some negative sides to it. One-way road tends to stimulate you being slightly more reckless when you're driving, because you have less things to care about. So you drive faster, you pay a bit less attention to what happens on the road, so there's slight increase in the accidents, small accidents on one-way, same direction accidents. And also it causes you to drive longer distances sometimes, so there is certain cost of simplifying the situation around us. And it all led to the recent situation when cities convert the one-way roads back to two-way, because it has a number of positive factors for the local businesses. For example, people tend to engage more with their environment when they are on two-way roads as opposed to one-way roads. So we should analyze what we do when we create one-way processes, and how can we mitigate the negative factors of the one-way and two-way processes. Now let's get back to the DevOps world. We have this DevOps vision, which is a vision. It's not methodology, like I prefer to say, because it tells you how things should be. It doesn't tell you how you do it. It doesn't tell you what you do exactly to achieve it. It tells you what you want to achieve, what you want to strive to achieve. And there is this negative situation when the wall of confusion, we are dropping the artifacts or the deployments, and we know that it's negative. We want to forbid that, and we came up with the vision of DevOps. We should all share this knowledge, and we should prohibit the throwing over the fence. That's the DevOps mindset. And it has several implementations, and the implementations of DevOps mindset will continue to arise, because we're not there yet. Some of the implementations are GitOps, SRE, platform engineering. It's all in the same bed of we are trying to find a way to formalize how we implement DevOps and what exactly do we do to be DevOps. What is GitOps? Hopefully, you mostly know what is that. I'll quickly remind you. GitOps is the idea, is a methodology that tells you that you should use, this is how you do it. You should use a declarative infrastructure as a code. Declarative is a big thing important thing in GitOps because it is opposed to imperative. Instead of telling steps of what you do, how do you deploy your infra, there are infrastructure as a code languages that do that, imperative, like programming language. They say, no, let's be declarative. Let's only say the desired state. Second component is Git is the central thing. The truth is only in Git. That's it. Very simple picture. Nice. There is some magic daemon that controls that desired state gets propagated and the reality converges to the desired state. Again, very simple. This is why people love it. As a result, we have developers, self-serving infrastructure to them, and ops less involved, and there is this magic spiral, or not spiral, but infinity symbol happening. And we are there, right? You know that we are not there. Something is still missing. And I tried to research how exactly people speak about GitOps problems. What do they say? And if we condense, we have really nice evidence of people being pissed off by GitOps as a concept. Not even the practice, but the concept of itself. They say it's a placebo. They say it's a cargo cult that is built on top of existing things, doesn't bring anything new. You just take infrastructure as a code and CD, and then you build a new name on top of it, and you say it's something new. It's a dogmatic solution. There are certain part of people who point to the problem that people tend to be fanatics about any written rules. And it comes like 2,000 years, we sometimes being really dogmatic about something that was written, and we're trying to implement it or use it just like it's written without common sense applied. And my best phrase that I like to see, it's like magic when it works, and it's like magic when it doesn't work. So it's bad and good. Some of them even go to the scientific areas and bringing up some observations of relationship between number of YAML files and the level of engineer satisfaction. So it all means that there is criticism of GitOps, there is problem that people recognize, or actually a number of problem, multidimensional problem. It's very interesting area of research. For example, when I started to research to the root of GitOps, to the original articles, they are from the year 2017, I quickly figured that the people who I spoke with talking about their GitOps implementation, they use single repository. But the original articles, they meant always two repositories. And is it misunderstood so much? Did we miss actually learning about the true nature of GitOps? So we took our single repository approach, shoved in infrastructure as a code files, and just asked our CI pipeline to do just one more step on top of it. So it may be as bad that it was really misunderstood by wide masses of people. Not all of them, but wide masses of people. How many repos do you use in your GitOps pipelines? Do you use 2 or 1? 2. Nice, nice, nice. So it was meant to be used too. But still people adopt the GitOps. Why does it happen? And I think the main reason of why people adopt GitOps is the organizational. The best thing is to watch this short clip, not right now, the short clip from the movie Bridge of Spies, when the agent, when Donovan, the main character, explains CIA agent why United States exists as a nation and a country from so many different people coming and still acting as a single nation because of the rules, of the written rules that exist and that unite everyone. And the rules matter. And this is why people really like GitOps, even if it's incomplete or misunderstood, because they need these written rules to resolve conflicts, to somehow have a way to onboard new people faster to the company, because it's easier to point to the methodology and say, we work like that, learn it, or even put it into requirements for the job, and it's easier. You join the company, you already know roughly how it would function, how you would work on a daily basis. The scalability of organization without written rules, I sometimes create the rules even for myself, for single person organization, because it's easier to kind of lay out on the paper what am I supposed to do, even especially if it's a big life decisions, taking a mortgage, moving to the other country. What are my considerations there? So it's important to have written rules. Common sense is kind of hard to catch. It's hard to formalize the common sense. That the common sense is referred by these people criticizing on Reddit about GitOps. They say, you just apply common sense. No, it doesn't scale. So the main success of GitOps is because of organizational reasons, I think. But if we speak to those people who their managers decided to go GitOps and now they need to practice, they come up with some reasonable problems or concerns that we would like to discuss here today. For those of you who are already GitOps, you would just feel that you're not alone in these pains. For those of you who are considering to move GitOps, you will be anticipating some of these challenges and be more prepared when they come. Let's see some of those. It's so many. I shrunk my presentation maybe 2 times from initial list of, ooh, how much of criticism can we have, but we don't have time for that. The authors of, this is a brilliant thing from the original article of GitOps declaration. Stop developing and maintaining deployment scripts and focus on implementing your features of the application. They didn't promise that we will now maintain YAML files in such a huge volumes. You can remember that graph, the very scientific relation between number of YAML files and satisfaction. There's a lot of truth to that. So you see that as soon as the number of your configuration files grows significantly, you get into the same problem as with imperative scripts. You need to maintain those, deduplicate, all of the typical programming stuff kicks in there. Next thing is pipelines. So we said, let's not deal with the procedural aspects of the deployment. Let's let the magician solve that. And this magician is pipeline, but who manages the pipeline? And the pipeline is imperative by design. It's the sequence of the steps. So this is where we move the problem. Who owns that pipeline? If everyone just pushes pull requests, who owns the pipeline? And so on and so on. The ownership, should I be expert in the pipelines? A big pain. Get less crazy about microservice breakdown. This is the side note, because the more pipelines you have means the more microservices, the more pipelines. So if you decrease the number of services, it will be slightly easier for you to manage the variety of the pipelines, because they tend to diverge with the number of services. Deploy is not momentary. Again, in GitOps, they say you just merge its operations by pull request. You just merge, and then the magic thing converges the state. But it's not truth. It's desired state. The reality is so much different. If you just tell 2 drivers, guys, you are 5 kilometers from here. This is my declaration. And now they need to deliver through the city, so they will probably reach that point not at the same time. And the one of them maybe even crash on the way. So it's not given that the desired state becomes the actual state. Multi-service environments are so much stochastic in their nature. They are going down and up, and in this state, and their previous rollout was not successful. What's the state and how the application would survive another deployment? Hard to predict. And partially successful deployment is your everyday thing. most of your system might be healthy, just 1 or 2 minor services would be down or unsuccessful. What do you do about it? This is a really good quote from one of my colleagues from Commodore who said, "We are busy with meetings, we cannot babysit our rollouts." It's really painful when the environment's so much complex that whoever does rollout needs to observe it until the end. And the question, what is the end? When is the end? How do you tell that successful deployment and green monitoring actually means the business side of things is operating? It's really tough. No good answers for that, no absolute answers for that. The rollback, it's brought up as a panacea to all the problems of GitOps. You just roll back and that's it. It's cool, but GitOps implies mostly the forward process. The rollback is tough, and I can give you a very simple example. One thing, it's like, it's good to roll forward and back Kubernetes manifests and images. What do you do about database migrations? Does it roll back so easily as just Kubernetes or image replacement? No. Introduce a bunch of fields, then you roll back everything, and now nothing knows about the existence of those fields, but the fields are persistent in the database. What do you do? Here's another scenario, delayed problem detection. Your team works and rolls things out, and then the bug gets discovered. What do? You roll back that innocent release, right? Because it was probably the one that caused it. No. The bug was introduced there. It was just not triggered because that customer that triggers that bug, that user, the user wasn't there. And then he came, tried to access the system. The most critical customer discovered the critical bug. What do? Do we do a daring rollback of several days of work with everything? If you are on call making this decision, how do you decide? It's such a responsibility. So it's not easy to operate in this situation. Next, the reality exists outside of that repo. So the repo is not single source of truth because we are all so much inside the ecosystem of the cloud, and it changes around us. You may deploy the same thing, and it would not deploy the same way just because the APIs changed, there are bugs and failures in the cloud providers, in your artifact storages, in your secret storages. Deprecations of Kubernetes and different other APIs, cloud APIs, is the favorite thing of big organizations who say this is their first problem. They solved everything except that. The reality around changes. So you need to be prepared for that. GitOps doesn't cover that, and you need to think bigger. Infrastructure drift is a common thing to mention when you operate GitOps. Many people say it's a thing. Infrastructure drift is when you do something that diverges the state of your cluster from the desired state of Git. And I claim that this is a good thing. We want that. Why do we want that? Let's say there's one-way road, back to that analogy, and there is an incident happening down the road. By the book, we need to issue an ambulance in the beginning of the CI pipeline. But the pipeline takes so much time because of the traffic congestion that try to tell your CEO that you see the problem, you could fix it by changing misprint in the name of the secret in Kubernetes, but we need to wait for 40 minutes because we need to push it into our pipeline because GitOps, this is what we agreed on. Your CEO wouldn't be happy in that situation, right? So the same behavior of on-call is let's do it this, or if we don't want to really violate the direction of the traffic, let's do it from here at least. Let's introduce the drift for a second. Let's resume the service, and then let's issue the proper clearance through the GitOps pipeline. So the common sense still is there. It's needed. when you operate in GitOps situations, you just need a bit more tooling on top of that. So you need the drift. For the bigger services, for the bigger situations, you need the drift. You just need to have, this is what I heard from multiple practitioners, they introduced the infrastructure lock. When we are in an issue, we are in incident, so we put the lock, nobody can deploy until we introduce the drift, figure out everything, and then we start to roll out normally. Unfortunately, this is how we have to sacrifice being dogmatic versus being practical. But divergent state is an exception. You should clear the lock and resume the GitOps operation as soon as possible. In general, it should be automatic by the reconciling tools. So as soon as you remove the lock, your Argo CD would resync it, or you click the sync button. All of that should be working. But it's like you cannot just not manage this process. And at the end, we will look how this relates to DevOps as a vision. The list goes on. So as I said, I could put 3 times more slides on the problems, discuss very much about that, but I don't want to be too critical. You already got the sense of what I'm talking about. Now, when I was thinking, how do I convey how GitOps makes life of on-call people harder, this is one slide of that. Because the problem is still there. There are people who, as soon as they got approval on their pull request, and that pull request gets merged, they would like to proceed to the next task. I got LGTM. Now it's not my problem anymore, because operations by pull request means that pull request is the end, is the means to the end. So GitOps didn't solve the DevOps problem yet. If we go a bit deeper into how the life of on-call gets harder, it's basically you lose the control if your team is dogmatic about GitOps. You lose the ability to use the drift, and you should really consider using infrastructure lock and intentional drift if you value your service interruptions or uninterruptance of your service more. The books by Agatha Christie didn't tell that the job of that detective of Poirot or Miss Marple are that boring, unpleasant, and burning out, because it's really hard to find the repo from which the problem originates. Then you need to find the architecture layer, the commit, the exact place where the problem has happened, and then answer the question, can I roll back to that state or not? It's really tough. Or do I commit it? Do I have sufficient tooling for infrastructure lock, or somebody would just merge the pull request and the reconciliator would just overwrite all the intentional drift that I did? You need to have the proper tooling for on-call people in place that respects the situations from GitOps. When is the fix sufficient? Can I go sleep now? Or should I keep observing and watching that system? That's a real question of somebody who's on call in the middle of the night. So to summarize, on-call's life didn't become completely easy with GitOps coming. Still problems, still many problems. Some of those are really specific to GitOps situations. For the ending of it, let's become more philosophical. Let's do even one more step back, and let's ask some bigger questions. You know the saying, jack of all trades, and you should know the continuation. Some people don't know the continuation of that. And it's the master of none. It's the bad proverb about something bad. Being jack of all trades is not good. So what was happening? There was a happy dev that now needs to do ops. But we want to be secure. Let's also be DevSecOps. And by the way, quality matter, right? How about UX? It's easy thing. Let's do some marketing. This is what I do. I'm a developer. I'm doing marketing right now. It's an easy thing. You're just talking. You're just doing presentations. How about design? We have no budget to hire a designer. You already made that UX thingy in the UI. Just give us a couple of snippets for the website. Sales, could you attend the sales call also? Help us sell that thing, explain the technical perspective of it. And by the way, the CTO has just left the company, so we need somebody to step in as the role of the CTO, right? Do we have time to develop? No. And this is, in my opinion, big problem, the conceptual problem of how we try to implement DevOps. Instead of implementing it in a communication ways, many teams thought that we need to make the people who work be dev and ops together, not dev as role communicate with ops as role. Let's merge them physically in one brain. It's okay, it's possible to merge. One person can do that all, but jack of all trades, master of none. Is it possible to do DevOps? I think yes, if we would stop trying to do that. The goals of DevOps and Ops are very different. Operations live in a continuous life of system being deployed, and it doesn't ever stop. While developer works in tasks, in scopes of tasks, in this project sometimes, and different project the next week. So it's very different nature of things people do. They should talk to each other. They should understand how the work of each other works, but it's not necessarily happens within the same physical brain. People fear silos, and they try to kill that by killing specialization and making full stack developer, DevOps, and everything I mentioned before, right? And all of that chimera walks around. Division of labor historically was the progress of the mankind. So we should rethink how we implement DevOps. We should respect the division of labor and respect specialization. Even more close to the end, the summary. Modern ops are very complex and not solvable by GitOps. We don't understand GitOps fully in many situations. It is limited. It doesn't cover everything. It only answers certain subset of the problems. And it's sometimes used as a dogma, which hurts the purpose. Specialization is good. Let's not kill specialization. Let's embrace it. What is next? What could be better? There should be something better. So the next fashionable term is platform engineering. This is the next thing that we are trying to come up with to solve the DevOps situation. I like it. It's abstraction layer for ops. It's good. It has potential to extend the things, improve them, and solve them. It lacks a bit methodology as declaration of what do you do exactly to do platform engineering. It's again a bit of on the vision side. Do you have platform? Yes, we have platform. Internal developer platform, internal developer platform. How exactly do you do that? It's really vague, in my opinion. Somebody has to step up with the next declaration of methodology, which would be based on all of the lessons that we have learned. And I'm thrilled to see what will happen to the methodology part of the field, because it's really interesting. And maybe in 5 years from now, I'll be speaking about the next set of challenges of the next fashionable thing. I think that's it. Yes, thank you very much. If you have any questions.